Hello! Welcome to Basic Outdoor Skills Channel. My name's Walt. How are you doing today? On an earlier episode of the podcast, we were talking about winter blues. You know, how to get your outdoor Jones fix in the wintertime. And one of the things I talked about was making or modifying your own gear. And when I was talking about that, of course, we started talking about one of my favorite things, and that is, of course, knives. So I thought I would show you a few of the knives that I either made or modified. Well, let's get started. So we'll start with the ones I modified. The first one I want to show you, this is an old timer. It's the sharp finger. And if you know what those look like, you can tell the modifications I've made here. And get a little closer here on the blade. So on the blade, it has a trailing... The knife comes with a trailing point. The point usually or normally comes out to here. And there's a thumb ramp right here. So you can, it's thumb ramp, right? So it just protects your thumb. And the idea is to keep your hand from sliding down the blade. Well, I mean, it's got a nice finger hook here, right? So, I mean, you got that nice big, you can see it in my thumb. It's as big as bigger, well, my thumb fits in there perfectly, so there you go. So what I did was, I could use the trailing point. I didn't care for it, but it didn't really bother me. What bothered me was the thumb ramp, right? It wasn't huge, but when I tried to use the knife blade up, right, with the edge up, the thumb ramp was in the way of my finger. I really didn't like it. So what I did is I took a straight edge, and I just drew a line starting at the end of the handle here and just went straight out. So there was a little U here, right, a little dip. I just went straight from the edge of from the end of the handle, and where the lowest point of the dip was, that was my straight edge. So I just went straight across. I took off the trailing point, took off the thumb ramp, and it made it a nice small knife. I do like small knives for a lot of field work. Now, modifying a knife doesn't always mean cutting it up, changing the blade profile. And here's an example. This is a little K-bar. It's a, oops, see if we can get that to focus here for you. One of the Johnson Adventure blades. And it comes with the little plastic cover on it. Now, a couple of years ago, I wanted a neck knife, and I wanted a small neck knife, and this was ideal, I thought. The problem I had with it, obviously, it's just a skeleton handle and just a bare plastic sheath. It's got a little loop here so you can theoretically hang it from your neck. The problem I have is after you use this a few times, it doesn't want to stay in the sheath, and I didn't want it falling out inside my shirt. So I modified it. Set this one here so we can see it. So I modified it this way. The first thing I did was took paracord and just wrapped the handle. Okay, so it's not, the handle's not a whole lot bigger than it was to start. It is obviously a little bigger. Here, let me get these closer. So this is the before, of course, obviously the after. Now, the plastic sheath part, like I say, after you play with this a few times, so there's a little notch here, and you can see, I think you can see, it's got just a little knob sticking out there that hooks on the back of this. And when it's new, like this one is, hey, it stays great. Problem is, after you use it a few times, it doesn't. So how did I fix that? Well, I went and found a cheap little nylon knife sheath. Now, originally, this was a much longer knife sheath. What I did was laid the knife out on top and just cut the sheath off where I wanted it. And then, of course, I just took a lighter and so melted it so the edges wouldn't fray. And I took the knife like this, and I crammed it. And it's tight, boy. I crammed it all the way down to the bottom, and it's in there now. But now, it stays in there. Now, prior to doing this knife would not stay in there. And you can see, it'll stay in there. It'll hang and it'll dangle, but it'll still, when you really, it'll still come out. So this is just another way you can modify your gear. Taking something simple and just doing that with it. That's a modification. Okay. Next, let's get into a few knives I've made here. Now, this is one of them I've made. Oops, excuse me. Let me get this out of your way. This is one I made, and I didn't actually make the blade. I bought the blade, and I just put an oak handle on it with some pins. And you can see on the handle, the two little pins here. Now, the idea was to put a brass bolster and pin it on. Well, I didn't want to do that, so I went with a solid oak handle, and you can see it's a full tang, and it really works nice, not knife. I just made a quick little fold over sheath, stitched on a belt loop, and there's that. Now, this is probably the easiest way. If you don't know how to make a knife, if you've never made a knife, if you're not sure you ever want to make a knife, this is probably the easiest way to do it. Now, there are other ways to do it. I made this knife, and I made this knife myself. I mean, I actually made the knife. This was just a solid piece of steel, and this was a piece of cedar that I had, and you can see, I epoxied the two together. I profiled it, and you can see it's just got a little cheap little cruddy edge on it. But you see, I didn't make this knife to be pretty. I made it to use, I made it to abuse. I made it so that I can trash it and it's not going to break my heart when I break it. So that's why I made that one. Now, my next knife, I just found a piece of stainless steel. Just a cheap piece of stainless steel. And yeah, I already know I'm going to get a lot of hate about prison shanks, but again, I care. And here it is. So all I did, I just kind of profiled a little handle to it, wrapped it in leather, and you can see I just ground the edge onto it. It takes a decent edge, not great. Frankly, I made this knife because I was going to use it to, well, do something nasty with it. There was a dead animal, and I needed some fishing bait, and so this is the knife I used for that. Now, my next knife, actually my next two knives, started as one knife. Now, this was a kitchen knife, and the blade started here, and here's the end of the blade. So you can see it was a pretty long blade. Well, I broke the blade. Yeah, I know. Well, I also wanted just a small little utility knife, so I just took the tip. You can see I just epoxied the handle on it. A little color just to play with. And this stays pretty much on my workbench all the time. And it's really nice. It's, it's got a good handle I can get a good grip on. It's not going to come out of my hand. And so this is just like my little shop knife. And of course this I didn't know what to do with, so I just played with it. Now this is something I want to talk about just a little bit. If you're not sure whether or not you want to make knives, or you have the talent to make a knife, or even the desire to make a knife, or you're afraid you're going to mess a knife up, this is an easy way to do it, to find out if you like it. If you're not sure about a blade profile, in this case, I wasn't sure if I wanted a tanto point knife. So I used this knife. I put the little modified tanto point on it, and I discovered that, yeah, I really didn't want a modified tanto point knife. So the knife was free. I mean, I broke the blade, and this helped me decide that, yeah, modified tanto point, not for me. Oh well. Anyway, that's just a few ideas, guys, on, how you can make or modify gear. If you'd like to hear the rest of the conversation, the entire episode, please go to iTunes. Just type in Basic Outdoor Skills, all one word, and our podcast will come up. If you don't want to go to iTunes, you can go to our website, basicoutdoorskills.com, click on the podcast tab, and you can listen to it there. That's all I have for you today, guys. Until next time, I hope to see you down the trail. Bye now.